Her billionaire husband asked her to play happy wife on air. She revealed how he used her name. Hello everyone. Before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It's quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. The apartment was quiet in the particular way hotel residences were quiet. The windows held back the traffic, the rugs softened every footstep, and even the espresso machine seemed designed not to disturb anyone important. Hannah Calder stood at the dining table with a stack of cream envelopes in front of her. They had arrived from the hotel events office, all engraved with the same new expansion logo. She was separating the ones addressed to Holden Rourke from the ones addressed to both of them. When Holden came in from the terrace, jacket over one shoulder, his phone tucked against his palm. "You're up early," he said. "So are you." "I'm meeting the lender team at 9. He crossed to the coffee bar and poured himself a cup. "You're looking at the interview list?" "Invitations." Hannah lifted one. "They've decided we need personalized stationery for a breakfast." Holden smiled, as if the excess were charming. "That's why they pay people to worry about it." He took the seat across from her, not quite sitting back. He was always about to leave for something, even when he had nowhere to be. At 38, he carried himself with the ease of someone who had learned early that a room would wait for him to finish a thought. "Wesley's team sent over a rough run," he said. "It's simple. The hotel, the new properties, some questions about leadership. Then he'll bring you in toward the end." Hannah looked up. "Bring me in. For 3 minutes, maybe 4. Holden reached across the table and touched the edge of an envelope, keeping his fingers away from the pile she had organized. "They want the marriage piece. People like seeing how a life holds together when the business gets loud." "Do they?" "They do when it's us." His smile softened. "You make it feel human." There was a time that sentence would have landed as tenderness. That morning it felt like being handed a tray she had not agreed to carry. "What exactly do you want me to say?" "Nothing exact. Just be yourself." He leaned forward. "Say we're happy. Say we built this together. You know, the truth without all the dull details." Hannah let the phrase remain between them. The truth without all the dull details. Holden had a way of clearing a path through conversation before anyone else had noticed it was narrowing. "Did we build it together?" she asked. He gave a small laugh, surprised rather than offended. "Hannah, I'm asking." "Of course we did. Not every spreadsheet, obviously, but the life." He lifted his cup. "You've been there for every hard year." That matters. It did matter. That was the trouble. He had been there for hard years too. Her father's long illness, the legal work after his death, the strange emptiness of inheriting rooms full of furniture she did not want. Holden had made tea when she could not sleep. He had stood beside her at a memorial and let the photographers look past him. He also knew exactly which truths could be turned into a polished sentence. His gaze dropped to the folders beside the invitations. "What are those?" "Family office correspondence." "Leave it here. I'll have someone collect it and scan what you need." Hannah put her hand over the folders. "I can read my own mail." "I know you can." His tone stayed gentle. "I'm saying you don't have to. You have enough on your plate this week." The reply came, so easily that it almost sounded considerate. She watched him wait for the familiar surrender, the nod, the grateful smile, the small admission that he was better at keeping track of things. Instead, she said, "I'll think about the interview." Holden stood, hearing what he wanted in it. He bent to kiss her forehead, a brief warm press that made Hannah's chest tighten for reasons she could not yet name. "That's all I need," he said. "It'll be easy. We'll make it easy." At the door, he paused to send a message. His voice was low, but not secretive. He did not believe he needed secrecy for an arrangement this ordinary. "Yes," he said into the phone. "Hannah will be there. Set her chair beside mine." Then he was gone, carrying his coffee and his certainty with him. Hannah remained at the table. The envelopes had not moved. On top of the folders beside her hand was a cream card from Wesley Dune's production office, embossed with the date of the live profile. Her name had been printed beneath Holden's in the same dark blue type. She read it twice before she put it face down. The Calder family office occupied 3 calm floors above a gallery district, where the sidewalks were still wet from an early rain. Hannah had worked there often enough to know the rooms by their quiet details. The walnut door handles, the framed maps her grandfather loved, the faint scent of paper and lemon oil. Miriam Quill was waiting in the conference room, with no coffee in front of her, which meant she had been there for some time. "You said it was routine," Hannah said, as she took the chair across from her. "It may be." Miriam's voice was level. At 56, she had the unhurried manner of someone who understood that urgency did not make evidence appear. "I wanted to show you something before anyone treated it as routine." She turned a document toward Hannah. It was a hotel presentation, glossy enough to feel more like a magazine than a financing packet. The opening pages featured a rendering of a waterfront property, Holden's photograph, several rows of projected numbers. Halfway through, a photograph of Hannah and Holden appeared beneath a heading about continuity of stewardship. Hannah looked at it, without understanding what Miriam wanted her to see. "Page 21, Miriam said. There, in smaller type, was a sentence referring to Hannah's continuing family office partnership and her anticipated support for the expansion's long-term character. "That isn't right," Hannah said. "In what way?" "I'm not a partner in Holden's company." "No, and I haven't discussed this financing." Miriam folded her hands. "That is why I asked you to come in." Hannah read the sentence again. It was mild, almost flattering. It did not say that she had signed anything. It did not name a dollar figure. It simply placed her where a reader might assume she belonged, beside Holden, behind the deal, part of the confidence the deal could borrow. "Maybe it's old language," Hannah said. "They reuse biographies. Holden probably doesn't even know it's there." "Possibly." Miriam did not challenge her. "Did you authorize any version of it?" "No." "Did you authorize your image to be included in lender-facing materials for this transaction?" Hannah's fingers tightened around the edge of the page. "No." Miriam opened a slim folder. Inside was a 1-page confirmation with 2 boxes. Authorization confirmed. Authorization not confirmed. Nothing dramatic. Nothing that told Hannah what she ought to do about her marriage. "I am not asking you to accuse anyone," Miriam said. "I am asking you to tell the truth about your consent. If the document is harmless, that will become clear. If it is not, we should know before your name travels farther than it already has." Hannah looked through the glass wall at the gray morning beyond it. Her first instinct was still to make it smaller. Holden had meetings. He moved quickly. His office made assumptions. She could call him, let him explain, perhaps apologize for making Miriam nervous. Then she imagined him at the kitchen table saying, "You don't have to read it." The words had sounded kind because they offered relief. Now they seemed to have come from a place that expected her not to look. "What happens if I check the second box?" she asked. "We preserve the presentation and ask the relevant parties to direct reliance questions through counsel. We review the source material. We do not make claims that the records cannot support." "Does Holden get notified?" "Not by this form. This is an internal factual record." Hannah picked up the pen. It felt absurdly light. She checked authorization not confirmed, then signed her name, with the care she usually gave a sympathy card. Miriam did not congratulate her. She placed the form in the folder and slid a second document over, an index of the materials the family office could lawfully request or already held. Hotel representations, trust references, older event files, corporate communications where Hannah's name had been included. "I will keep this narrow," Miriam said. "We will start with the question you answered. We will not turn every memory into a case file." Hannah gave a short breath. That was almost a laugh. "Thank you. You may still decide there is an ordinary explanation. And if there isn't," Miriam met her eyes, "then you will have facts before you decide what belongs to you." When Hannah left, the rain had stopped. Her phone showed a message from Holden. "Lunch tonight? I'll bring your favorite." For several seconds, she stared at it. Then she typed, "That would be nice." She did not add anything else. The next morning, Miriam spread the older records across the same conference table in careful rows. Nothing in them looked stolen or secret. That was what unsettled Hannah most. They were ordinary remnants of a season people had considered successful. Planning notes, sponsorship lists, seating diagrams, printed decks that had been filed away because someone, somewhere, thought paperwork was worth keeping. These are from the year you met Holden, Miriam said. The materials came from files connected to the City Arts benefit and the hotel's early positioning work. Hannah knew the benefit. She remembered the night by the rain on the sidewalk and the way Holden had offered her his umbrella as if it had happened by chance. He had asked whether she wanted a quieter place to eat after the speeches. She had said yes, because he seemed relieved when she did. Miriam placed a sponsor seating chart beside a venue proposal. Hannah's name appeared in a margin beside a note about family guests and preferred placement. It was not damning on its own. Then Miriam set down a presentation from Phoebe Arlen's old branding firm. It described a campaign for the hotel group's new public face, established, approachable, connected to the city, without looking inherited. Hannah read the phrase twice. Beneath it were several possible access channels. One was labeled Family Office Adjacency. Another noted that a natural introduction could be built around the City Arts benefit. Phoebe made this. Hannah asked. Her firm did. Her name appears on the internal routing sheet as the lead strategist. Before Holden and I were together. Before you were publicly together. Miriam did not say more. She had known Hannah long enough not to fill silence just because it was uncomfortable. Hannah touched the paper, then pulled her hand back. This could be a proposal that went nowhere. Yes, it could be about anyone. Some portions could. Miriam moved one page closer. The date on a planning note matched the week Holden had first asked Hannah to dinner. The restaurant was named in a logistical section about post-benefit hosting. He had told her he knew it because a friend loved the wine list. The room seemed to tip, though nothing had changed. Hannah remembered his wet sleeve, the umbrella he had held too low, so they both got damp, his patient attention, when she complained about the auction speeches. She remembered deciding he was different because he did not act impressed by the Calder name. Was any of it real? She asked. Miriam's expression softened but did not become pity. Records can show planning. They can show what people chose to put in writing. They cannot tell you every feeling he had, or every feeling you had. Hannah swallowed. That isn't an answer. It is the one I can give honestly. For a moment, Hannah wanted Miriam to make a stronger claim. A clean betrayal would have been easier to hold than this. The possibility that affection and strategy had occupied the same room, and that she had been the only person who did not know it. She sat down again. What do we need next? Current deal records. We need to know whether this old material remained a pitch, became a practice, or is being repeated now in another form. Can we get them? Some are already in the family office archive because they cite your trust. Others can be requested through the representations made to the lender. We will compare dates, signatories, and language, slowly enough to know what we are looking at. Hannah looked at the paper with the phrase natural introduction. Her first instinct was to fold it away where it could not see her. Instead, she slid it into the center of the table. Request everything that concerns my name, she said. Not everything about Holden. Not everything about Phoebe. Just what I have a right to know. Miriam nodded. That is a workable instruction. When Hannah left the office, she walked 3 blocks before opening Holden's message from the previous night. He had sent a photograph of the takeout cartons arranged on their kitchen counter, 2 place settings beside them. Wish you were here. She stood beneath an awning, rain beginning again in a fine gray line, and understood that she had been wishing for a version of the same evening that might never have existed. By the second evening, the apartment had become too orderly for Hannah to trust it. Holden arrived carrying a paper bag from the restaurant near the river, the one he had brought home on the first night they had spent together in this apartment. He set it on the counter with a flourish that was meant to make her smile. I remembered the extra ginger, he said. You did. He kissed her cheek. His face was cool from the elevator ride, his expression open and tired in a way Hannah had always read as honesty. She watched him take plates from the cabinet without asking where they were. He knew the room. He knew the rhythm of her hands. None of that had stopped him from arranging what he assumed she would say in public. The producer wants 2 wardrobe options tomorrow, he said. Nothing stiff. They're trying to keep it warm. Warm for whom? Holden glanced over. For the audience. For us. He opened the bag and began transferring food into bowls. The expansion has picked up some silly chatter. People get nervous when a company grows. Wesley's profile gives us a chance to put a face on it. Your face. Our faces. He smiled as though she were teasing. You know what I mean. Hannah carried the plates to the table. What do you want me to say about my family? The question slowed him, but only for a beat. Nothing elaborate. I told the team you'd say the Calder name opened nothing for us except values. Hannah set down a plate a little too hard. You told them that? It's true. You didn't ask me. I didn't think it required a committee meeting. His voice remained low. I'm trying to keep you out of boring business noise. The old version of Hannah might have heard concern and backed away from the edge of the conversation. She could still hear the concern now. That was why it was so effective. Holden knew how to wrap a decision in care. Until questioning, it looked ungrateful. Why do you need me to say it? She asked. He paused with the chopsticks in his hand. Because it's accurate. Because people will make assumptions anyway, and I would rather they hear the truth from you than from someone trying to turn your family into a talking point. And the truth is whatever you've already told them, I'll say. For the first time, that evening, something flickered behind his expression. Not anger exactly. Surprised that she had made the shape of the thing visible. Then he reached across the table and covered her hand with his. Hannah, you're exhausted. I shouldn't have put the details on you. I'll handle it. His thumb made one slow pass across her knuckles. She felt the impulse to let the touch settle the argument, to say it was fine just to restore the pleasant evening he had brought home in a paper bag. Instead, she withdrew her hand to pick up her glass. I don't want to rehearse tomorrow, she said. You don't have to rehearse. I don't want to choose dresses or practice answers either. Holden considered her, with the calm patience he used in board meetings when someone had made a problem seem larger than it was. All right, we'll keep it simple. Be there, be yourself, and I'll take care of the rest. The sentence made Hannah almost smile, though there was nothing amusing in it. That's what worries me, she said. He looked at her then, properly looked, but she had already lowered her eyes to the untouched food between them. He did not press. His phone lit up on the counter. He read the screen and typed a reply with one hand. Phoebe is tightening the family language prompts, he said absently. She'll make sure nothing sounds canned. Hannah let that name settle in the room. Phoebe is working on our interview, on the brand consistency. It's not personal. Not personal. The phrase landed beside all the others. Easy, simple, protected, handled, each one asking her to accept a smaller place in a story that used her name. She ate a few bites because he was watching. Holden mistook the gesture for peace. By the time he opened a second bottle of sparkling water, he was talking about the hotel again, the views from the rooftop, the guests who would be in the audience. Hannah listened. She gave him enough responses to keep him comfortable. Inside, she began to understand that her silence was not the same as agreement. It could also be time. On the third afternoon, Miriam called Hannah before she could leave the family office. I have the current materials, she said. Can you come upstairs? Hannah was already in the elevator when the doors closed behind her. She watched the floor numbers rise and kept one hand around her phone, though she had no intention of calling Holden. Not yet. She did not know what she would ask, that he could not turn into a reassurance. Miriam had moved to a smaller conference room, one with no windows and a long cabinet of files along the wall. The papers on the table were fewer this time. They looked cleaner, more dangerous for being recent. The lender received a summary of the transaction last week, Miriam said. This is the support package referenced in it. Hannah read the first page. The language was technical, written to suggest stability, without making a promise too plainly. Then she found the section that mattered. Hannah Calder's anticipated family office support, continued public alignment, and personal participation in the hotel group's next chapter. There was no signature from her, no authorization, only a sentence constructed to make her absence sound like a formality. He used my name as collateral, Hannah said. Not in the technical sense, Miriam replied, but he presented your standing as support for the deal's credibility. Hannah nodded once. The correction did not soften it. Miriam placed a printed email chain beside the deal summary. The subject line read Calder Continuity Story. Holden's name appeared at the top. Phoebe's was beneath it. The messages discussed the upcoming interview in the dry, efficient language of a campaign. Keep the marriage visible. Avoid questions about family office involvement. Let Hannah speak to shared values. Do not overexplain. There was nothing intimate in the exchange. No private detail Hannah could seize and turn into a spectacle. That made it worse. Her life had been reduced to useful language in a plan they had expected to work. Does this prove Phoebe knew? Hannah asked. It proves she participated in shaping a narrative that used your name and marriage. It does not tell us every conversation she had with Holden. It tells me enough. Miriam waited. Hannah stood and walked to the cabinet, then back again. She could feel the old instinct gathering force. Be fair, leave room, do not cause a disturbance that cannot be repaired. She had built much of her marriage out of that instinct. It had made Holden's life smooth enough that he no longer seemed able to recognize it as labor. If I withdraw consent now, she said, am I responsible if the deal falls apart? No. You are responsible for telling the truth about what you did and did not authorize. The lender and board are responsible for deciding what they can rely on. Holden is responsible for the representations he made. Will they have to stop it? They may pause review while they assess the record. That would be proportionate. Hannah looked again at the sentence promising her support. It had traveled out into rooms she had never entered. It had made use of her, without even requiring her to be present. I want the notice to be narrow, she said. I don't want a performance. I don't want anyone claiming things we can't prove. We can make it factual. Miriam opened a blank document. Hannah dictated slowly at first, then with more certainty. She did not authorize use of her name, image, trust relationship, or marital endorsement in connection with the transaction. She did not authorize anyone to represent her anticipated participation. Any future contact about her role was to come through counsel. When she finished, Miriam read it back exactly as written. Send it, Hannah said. Miriam sent the notice to the lender and the hotel board's designated counsel. Then she requested an independent review of the representations that relied on Hannah's endorsement. The click of the message leaving was nearly soundless. Hannah expected relief. What came instead was a sharp, clean fear. Her phone lit up with Holden's name. Running late, he wrote. Don't wait dinner. I'll make it up to you tomorrow. Hannah looked at the message until the screen dimmed. You don't have to answer, Miriam said. I know. She put the phone face down on the table. The interview was still 2 days away. Holden still believed she would sit beside him and make the story easy. For the first time, Hannah understood that she could let him believe it a little longer, not to punish him, and not because she lacked the courage to speak, but because she had already begun to choose the terms on which she would. Phoebe Arlen asked for 20 minutes and chose a conference room on the hotel's quietest floor. Hannah noticed that before she noticed anything else. The room had no branding on the walls, no view of the lobby, no little gestures meant to remind a person how much money had been spent making the place feel effortless. There was a pitcher of water, 3 glasses, and a closed folder in front of the chair where Miriam sat. Phoebe stood when Hannah came in. She wore a charcoal suit, without any of the bright polish Hannah had seen in the interview materials. At 35, Phoebe had a quick intelligence about her that Hannah had once mistaken for confidence alone. Now she could see the calculation too, the way Phoebe watched a room for the point where a message might fail. Thank you for agreeing to this, Phoebe said. I agreed to 20 minutes, Hannah replied. She took the chair opposite her. Miriam Quill is here because this concerns my name and my family office. Phoebe nodded. I understand. For a few seconds, no one spoke. The hotel hummed faintly beyond the walls, elevators rising and falling somewhere in the building Holden had made feel like an extension of himself. I heard the lender ask questions, Phoebe said finally. I don't know the contents of any notice. I'm not asking you to tell me. Then why are we here? Phoebe looked down at her hands. Because I need to tell you what I did know. Miriam did not interrupt. She had set a notebook in front of her, but did not open it. Phoebe drew in a breath. Years ago, when Holden's group was trying to change how people saw the company, I was asked to build a strategy. The city arts benefit was part of it. Your family's presence was part of it. The goal was access to a different kind of credibility. And the natural introduction? Hannah asked. Phoebe's eyes lifted. For the first time, the careful professional distance left her face. That language was in the deck. Did you arrange it? I mapped the event. I suggested the opportunity. Holden made the choice to pursue you. That is not an answer. Phoebe let the correction stand. I helped create the conditions in which he could meet you. I knew it was strategic. I told myself that people meet through plans all the time, that I was only doing my job. Hannah looked at the water glasses. One of them had a thin line of condensation running down its side, gathering at the base, as if it had somewhere to go. And now, she asked. Phoebe did not reach for the folder. Now I was asked to make the interview feel natural. To keep your marriage visible. To make the family questions sound like they belong there. Did you know I had not been asked about the deal? Phoebe's hesitation was answer enough, but she spoke anyway. I knew you had not been in the conversations I was given. I knew Holden treated that as something he would handle. I should have asked more. Hannah felt the first hot edge of anger arrive, not as a storm, but as a clean line beneath her ribs. Phoebe had known enough to recognize Hannah's absence, and had accepted the convenience of it. You knew my name was being used as a business instrument, Hannah said. Phoebe's face changed, then steadied. Yes. The room went quiet again. I am not going to ask you to explain my marriage to me, Hannah said. And I'm not going to ask you to make Holden explain himself. You are responsible for what you chose to do. He is responsible for what he chose to do. I am finished being responsible for the space between those things. Phoebe nodded once. That's fair. It isn't about fair. Hannah kept her voice low. It is about not carrying it for you. Phoebe looked toward Miriam, then back to Hannah. I'll remove myself from the interview preparation. I'll give the company a full account of my work when I'm asked. I won't use you as the reason. Do that because it's yours to do, Hannah said. Not because you think it helps me. Phoebe's mouth tightened, and for a moment Hannah thought she might defend herself. Instead she said, all right. When the 20 minutes were over, Phoebe left without asking for forgiveness, or offering an apology large enough to make the room easier. Hannah waited until the door closed. Miriam opened her notebook at last. Do you want to record anything from that meeting? Hannah considered it. A week ago, she might have wanted every sentence pinned down, every hurt made useful. Now she knew that not every truth had to become ammunition. Only that she will answer for her own work, Hannah said. Nothing else. Miriam wrote it down. Outside, through the small glass panel beside the door, Hannah could see the hotel lobby gleaming under its afternoon lights. People crossed it in quiet currents, each one moving towards something they had chosen. For the first time in days, Hannah felt the shape of a choice returning to her own hands. The night before the interview, Hannah packed a small case in the dressing room off the apartment's bedroom. She did not take much. A sweater, 2 pairs of trousers, the plain leather notebook her father had given her when she began working at the family office, and the folder Miriam had prepared with copies of the notice. The act of choosing what belonged to her felt stranger than it should have. For years, every trip had begun with Holden calling from the doorway, asking whether she had remembered the charger, the shoes, the black dress that photographed well. This time she chose things no one had asked her to bring. Holden appeared in the doorway with a garment bag over one arm. I thought you were changing in here. I'm packing a few things. For tomorrow? For after? He set the garment bag on the bed. We're not going anywhere after. Wesley's team wants us downstairs for a few minutes. Then we can have dinner somewhere quiet. I thought the rooftop. No cameras. Hannah folded the sweater and placed it in the case. I won't be staying here tomorrow night. The silence that followed was not loud, but it entered every corner of the room. Holden sat on the edge of the bed. Are you leaving me? I'm taking space. Because of the interview? Because of a lot of things. He rubbed a hand over his jaw, then looked at the half-packed case, as if it were a problem he could solve by finding its practical cause. Hannah, I know I've been distracted. This deal has been consuming more than it should, but you don't have to make a decision in the middle of it. I already made one. He looked up sharply. What decision? She had rehearsed no confrontation. That was what made the question difficult. The truth was not a single fact she could lay down, and be done with. It was a line she had finally stopped stepping over. Did you ever plan to tell me the deal depended on my family standing? She asked. Holden's expression changed by degrees. First confusion, then caution. What are you talking about? Did you? He stood and moved to the window. Below them, the city was silver, with rain, headlights dissolving on the streets. There are references to your family in all kinds of materials. That's what happens when people know who you are. That isn't what I asked. I was going to deal with it. He turned back. I was trying to protect you from complications you did not need. The phrase was so familiar that Hannah almost heard the kitchen table beneath it, the coffee, the invitation card, with her chair already chosen. You always say that, she said, because I do protect you. Safety is not the same as being spoken for. He stared at her. His anger had not surfaced. He was too practiced for that. But the softness in his face had gone still. You think I used you, he said. I think you decided what I would give, without asking me, for our future. A future is not shared if one person gets to decide what the other person is for. Holden's phone vibrated on the dresser. He looked at the screen, but did not pick it up. We can talk about this after tomorrow, when neither of us is trying to say something perfect. Hannah closed the case. I am not trying to say anything perfect. He reached into the garment bag and took out a card, the heavy kind used for Q notes. On it, beneath the program logo, was a question in neat black type. What has kept your marriage strong through so much public success? This is what Wesley will ask, he said. You don't have to prepare an answer. Just remember that no matter what this week feels like, we have made a life together. Hannah accepted the card. His fingertips brushed hers and withdrew. I know we made a life, she said. That is why I won't let you describe it without me anymore. For a moment, he looked as if he might ask another question. Instead, he took the garment bag and left the room, carrying it with him, as though he had simply chosen a different place to hang it. Hannah waited until the apartment was quiet. Then she opened her laptop at the desk by the window and sent Miriam a single message. The notice stands. I will attend the interview. Please be reachable. Miriam's reply came a minute later. I will be. Hannah placed the cue card in the top pocket of her case. She did not know where she would stay after the broadcast or what she would decide about the marriage in the weeks that followed. She knew only that she would be there tomorrow in the chair Holden had set beside his, and that she would not use it to make his story easier. The flagship hotel had been arranged for the live profile with the kind of restraint that cost a great deal of money. The stage was a low platform in the atrium, framed by pale stone, winter branches, and the muted blue of the city beyond the glass. 3 chairs faced the cameras. Wesley Dunes at the center, Holden's to one side, Hannah's beside him. Hannah saw the chair before she saw Holden. He was waiting near the stage in a dark suit, one hand resting at the small of his back. He smiled when she approached, the same calm public smile he had worn at memorials, openings, family dinners, any place where a person might mistake composure for closeness. You look beautiful, he said. Thank you. I'm glad you came. Hannah looked at him. You were certain I would. The smile held, though only just. I hoped. Wesley joined them a moment later. At 47, he had the attentive manner of someone who made a career out of asking questions without pretending he knew the answer. He greeted Hannah by name and asked whether she had any limits around the conversation. Only that I be allowed to speak for myself, she said. Wesley's brows rose slightly, then he nodded. That seems reasonable. Holden's hand found Hannah's elbow as they walked toward the chairs. It was light enough that no one would call it guiding. She felt the pressure anyway and stepped into her seat before he could settle her there. The opening passed smoothly. Wesley asked Holden about the hotel group's early years, the restoration work, the risk of expanding at a moment when other companies were shrinking back. Holden answered with his usual fluency. He spoke about patience, about listening to the character of a place, about the responsibility of building something that would outlast a quarterly report. Hannah listened with the strange double vision she had carried all week. Nothing he said was false on its surface. That had always been one of Holden's gifts. He could make a sentence true enough to be admired, while leaving its cost outside the frame. Then Wesley turned to her. Hannah, people see you and Holden as a partnership. What has kept your marriage strong through so much public success? The cue card in Hannah's pocket seemed to weigh more than paper should. Holden looked toward her with a small, encouraging expression, the one he used when he wanted her to be charming, without making him ask outright. Hannah folded her hands in her lap. Holden asked me for one lie, she said. Her voice was quiet, but it carried in the stillness of the atrium. He asked me to say we were happy and united in this deal. Holden's expression did not break. Hannah, and I'm going to tell one truth. She looked at Wesley, not at the cameras. My husband used our marriage as a credential. He used my name and my family standing in connection with a hotel deal without my informed consent. I have withdrawn that consent. The air seemed to leave the room, without anyone moving. Wesley's hands came together around his note cards. Holden turned toward her. This is a private misunderstanding. It has been private because you expected my silence to stay private. I never expected you to be silent. Hannah met his eyes. You set my chair, wrote the answer, and told people what I would say. His jaw tightened. I was trying to protect us. You were trying to protect the version of us that helped you. Wesley did not rush in with the next question. He looked first at Hannah, then at Holden, his attention no longer shaped for a profile. I'm going to pause the planned format, he said. We don't make claims in a live program that cannot be responsibly supported. Hannah, is there anything further you need to say for yourself? Hannah felt her pulse at the base of her throat. The hardest part was not naming what Holden had done. It was refusing the urge to make the moment cleaner by explaining every wound, every doubt, every way she had tried to help him appear better than he had been. Only that no one gets to spend another person's name, wealth, or truth without consent, she said. I am not here to punish anyone. I am here to say that I did not agree to be used this way. Holden leaned closer, his voice low enough to sound intimate, and sharp enough to make the distinction clear. You are doing this now? No, Hannah said. I did it before now. The board and lender were notified before we came on air. For the first time, he looked genuinely unprepared. Wesley set his cards down. We will end the profile here. There was no applause, no shouted reaction, no audience offered the power to decide what any of it meant. The cameras remained still while the program moved to a break. Hannah stood. Holden did not touch her elbow this time. The corridor behind the atrium was cooler than the stage had been. Once the broadcast moved to a break, the hotel seemed to resume its ordinary operations around them. Elevators opened and shut. Doors clicked softly. Air moved through the vents with a steady mechanical breath. Holden walked ahead of Hannah for several steps, then stopped beside a narrow window that looked out over a service courtyard. His phone vibrated in his pocket. He read the screen and did not answer. The board is asking for you, he said. Hannah did not respond. They were already asking, he added. Before the interview, Miriam came through the corridor door carrying the same black folder she had brought to Phoebe's meeting. She did not hurry. Hannah saw Holden notice her and understand, piece by piece, that the broadcast had not created an emergency. It had exposed one already in motion. The lender has acknowledged the notice, Miriam said to Hannah. They have paused their review of any representation. That depends on your endorsement. The board has been told the same. An independent review will determine what can proceed without it. Holden gave a short, humorless breath. You planned this. Hannah made a factual statement about her consent. Miriam said. The timing of the review belongs to the parties who received it. He looked at Hannah, not Miriam. Why didn't you give me a chance to explain? The question was quiet. It might have sounded wounded to someone who had not heard the version of it underneath. Why had she not come to him first, so he could decide the scale of the answer? You had chances to ask, Hannah said. You had chances to tell me what you were using my name for. I did it for our future. You did it for a future you designed alone. His phone vibrated again. He silenced it without looking. You don't understand what this costs, he said. Hannah felt the fear from Miriam's office return, the knowledge that consequences would reach past the moment she could see. But fear did not make his sentence more true than hers. I understand that it costs something, she said. That is not the same as making it my responsibility to fix. Phoebe stood at the far end of the corridor, not close enough to join the exchange, without being invited. Her event badge was gone. The detail was small, but Hannah saw it. Holden noticed her too. "Phoebe, tell them." Phoebe did not move toward him. "I'll answer for my work directly," she said. Not through Hannah. It was not an apology, and Hannah did not need it to be. It was the first sentence Phoebe had said in the hotel that did not ask Hannah to carry its meaning. Holden's face closed. He looked from Phoebe to Miriam, then back to Hannah. The polished calm he had brought to the stage had not disappeared, but it no longer had an audience willing to confuse it with resolution. "So that's it?" he asked. "No," Hannah said. "It's the part where you speak to the board, and I decide what I need next." Miriam picked up Hannah's small case, which had been placed near the stage before the broadcast. Hannah took it from her instead. "I can carry it," she said. Miriam nodded and released the handle. Hannah walked toward the elevator. She did not look back to see whether Holden followed. The future remained unsettled. The deal, the marriage, the rooms they had filled together, with ordinary evidence of a life. She felt no triumph as the elevator doors opened. What she felt was the ache of having stopped something familiar from happening again. Miriam stepped in beside her. As the doors closed, Hannah's phone lit, with a message from Holden. She did not open it. She turned the screen face down in her hand and let the elevator carry her away from the hotel without making a single gesture to soften the view behind her. The next morning, Hannah returned to the family office before the city had fully warmed from the rain. The reception floor was empty except for the low sound of the building coming awake. She took the elevator to Miriam's conference room and found a single file waiting at the center of the table. No flowers, no messages, no printouts of the broadcast. Miriam had closed the shades halfway, leaving a soft bar of morning light across the walnut surface. "How did you sleep?" Miriam asked. "Poorly." Hannah took the chair across from her. "But honestly," Miriam gave the smallest nod. "That can be a beginning." The file was not about Holden's hotel group. It contained a proposed advisory role for a restoration project the family office had been considering for months, one focused on turning an unused historic property into small workspaces for local businesses. Hannah had visited the site once and liked its worn brick, its high windows, the fact that no one had yet decided what kind of story it should tell. "You asked to see this last spring," Miriam said. "We held it because your schedule became difficult." Hannah turned the pages. The authorization sheet was clean and almost bare. Her name appeared at the top, followed by fields that had not been completed: public role, trust relationship, image use, approval authority, term. Each one waited for her choice. "Everything is blank," she said, "until you decide what you are willing to authorize." Hannah ran her finger along the margin. The contrast with the hotel packet was so simple it hurt. There, her support had been anticipated before anyone spoke to her. Here, nothing moved until she filled it in herself. Her phone rested beside the file. There were several messages from Holden now. She had read none of them. One from the hotel's general number had been routed to Miriam's office, confirming that future questions about Hannah's role would come through counsel. Nothing had been settled. An independent review was not a verdict. Separate counsel did not answer whether a marriage could be repaired or whether it should be. "Do you want to wait?" Miriam asked. Hannah looked up. "For the project?" "For any decision that feels like it needs more time." She thought about the 4 days that had brought her here. The careful questions. The old seating chart. Holden's hand over hers at the dinner table. The cue card in her pocket. She thought about how often quiet had been offered to her as a virtue, when sometimes it had been only the space another person needed in order to keep speaking. "I have spent a long time confusing quiet with being erased," she said. "I don't want to do that today." Miriam waited. Hannah picked up the pen. "I want a limited advisory role. No use of my name in fundraising or marketing without separate approval. No reference to the trust unless I authorize it in writing. I want the authority to review any public statement that uses my work." "That is specific," Miriam said. "I'm trying to be." Together they completed the fields. There was no grand declaration in it. Hannah asked questions about the project's timetable, the scope of the commitment, the line that allowed her to end the role if the work changed. Miriam answered what she knew and marked what needed a later decision. When the document was ready, Hannah read it from the beginning. Then she signed. The sound of the pen leaving the paper was slight, but she felt it in her shoulders. Her name had entered a professional record because she had placed it there, not because someone had arranged the sentence around it. Miriam closed the file without taking it away. Would you like me to respond to Holden? No messages on my behalf, Hannah said. He can communicate through counsel about the deal. About anything else, I will decide when I want to answer. All right. Hannah stood and carried the signed copy to the window. Below, the street had filled with people moving between the gallery district and the morning traffic. Nothing about the view had changed. The city had not paused for the interview, or for the deal, or for the fact that she had finally stopped letting another person describe her, as if she were a useful part of his plan. She slipped the copy into her notebook and closed it. The future was not clean. It was not even yet comfortable. But it was no longer being drafted in a room where she had not been invited. This story is a fictional dramatization created for entertainment and educational purposes. Any resemblance to real people, companies, or events is purely coincidental.